I don't see my mute and those buttons. Yeah.
Namaste, namaste to one and all. A very warm welcome to the 8th edition of the fortnightly Indic Samvad, brought to you by the Center for Consciousness Studies and Inner Transformation at Indic Academy. I would like to begin today's session with a short invocation. Om. Om. Sahana bhavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, saha viryam karavavahai, tejasvinavakitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. The Center for Consciousness Studies and Inner Transformation is an endeavor to ensure that contemporary areas of psychology, management, and consciousness research is grounded in Vedic wisdom. The mission of the Center for Consciousness Studies and Inner Transformation is to enable leaders, coaches, and healers to transform themselves and act in the world while being anchored in consciousness. We offer coaching programs, personalized sessions. We organize talks, retreats, workshops, and conferences. We are very blessed to have amongst us Dr. Ramesam Vemuri ji and Brahmachari Sai Sampath ji, who's the co-founder at CCSIT. Very warm welcome to both of you as well. And I would now hand it over to Sai ji to kindly take it.
Welcome everybody to the Indic Samvad on Advaita for developing conscious leaders. Advaita, being the pinnacle of Indian wisdom, has, as all of us know, has got a universal appeal, and it has had very, very significant influence on the West for a long, long time. So what we are exploring today is some of the key concepts of Advaita and how they can be harnessed to look at leading organizations and institutions in a conscious manner. So today we will be looking at some of the key concepts like ajAti vata. We will be looking at the core propositions about the perception reality and the disconnect therein. We will look at the nature of reality itself from an Advaitic standpoint, and also we look at also there could be some brief experiment on the samvedana, and then the concepts of and model of superimposition and sublation, and some of the core aspects of Advaita will be touched upon today. Then we will move into what does it mean to leaders in terms of concepts in Vedanta and Advaita about Jivan Mukta and those, and how they are applicable to an extent for the leaders of today's organizations, corporations, as the case may be. And we are very fortunate to have with us Dr. Ramesam Vemuri, a great proponent of Advaita and a practitioner. And in fact, when we had a conversation, we were wondering how such something so lofty as Advaita, how can we look at its application for something as temporal as leading corporations and institutions. So we had a lively conversation some time ago on this. Dr. Ramesam ji is a practitioner of Advaita, and and he has contributed immensely to bring the Advaitic wisdom through multiple publications. He has got a publication called Religion Demystified, a primer on Advaita, which is published in 2000. Religion Demystified was published in 2008. The primer on Advaita was published as recently as 2022. And he also has co-authored a book called Knowing and Being in 2022. So, and he has worked with a lot of several Western authors on this whole concept of Advaita and non-duality. And there is a Advaita Vision site, which is a UK-based thing, where he regularly contributes. And he has also brought in Yoga Vasishta of Maharshi Valmiki and Yoga Taravali of Adi Shankara to the Western world. And he has also been contributed to bringing the works of Sri K.V. Krishnamurti Garu, a well-respected Sanskrit scholar and a Vedic pundit. He will be joined at appropriate intervals by Sri Vijay Padgaonkar. Vijayji is a satsang companion of Ramesam ji, and he has also consented to be with us during this session. With this brief but fairly not so comprehensive introduction of Ramesam ji, which obviously is not covering the ground he has covered over a long time. With all gladness, I request Ramesam ji to enlighten us on Advaita and its application for conscious speech. Over to you, Ramesam.
Namaskaram to everybody. Thank you very much. I should express my gratitude to Hari Kiran ji, who is the chairman of INDIC, who introduced me to this active group, Center for Consciousness Studies. And I'm grateful to Sai Sambat ji, Namrata ji, and all his colleagues in the center for giving me this opportunity. And thanks, Vijay is also able to join us. I'm sure he will enrich the discussions here. If you don't mind, I would like to start off with a PowerPoint projection. And I request all the participants to kindly relax wherever you are sitting, in your chairs or sofas, and please be focused, because I would very much like you not to miss the sequential development of the thought process. So please focus your minds and relax your bodies. And here we go, a bit fast, because I was to share a number of ideas, and the time is pretty much limited. So may I share the screen, Namrata ji?
Yes, you may share it. You may share it.
Yeah. Doesn't seem to come up. Yeah, no.
At the bottom of your screen, there will be a green tab. Says share.
Yes. Good. Now
Yes.
there. Thank you all. I invite your kind attention, as I said, to these slides. Our scheme of presentation, as somebody has already indicated, we will have a short discussion on the basic tenets of Advaita. Then we will move on to see how a self-actualized teacher, a leader, will be in his conduct and behavior. And then we'll have more of an interactive session, hopefully, depending upon how fast I'm able to move with what I want to say first. Anybody's aim in the whole world, if you stop anybody on the street and ask, everybody aims at happiness and harmony in the society environment he or she lives. Actually, there is no cause or action doing which you can ensure happiness. Happiness is uncast, and we will see why it is so. Whereas a million causes may be there to be unhappy. While the traditional religions, sects, cults, and all these people go about promises of keeping you happy or delivering happiness to you, provided you believe in what they say, whether they are the prophets or the messiahs or the gurus or the any sorts of bosses. They would promise, but hardly anything gets delivered. Whereas it is Advaita philosophy only, which uniquely and very boldly says there is no creation at all. And in fact, they even say there is hardly any reason for anything to be born. And this is repeatedly said in about 4 or 5 Upanishads and in several special treatises by the top-ranking acharyas of Advaita. Then immediately we get a doubt. What is this world I see around, including my body? I can feel it. I can touch it. This touchy-feely world is all nothing but your own self-deception. The deception being through the 5 sensory organs. We use the eyes for sight, the ears for sound, the nose for smell, the tongue for taste, and the skin for touch. These are the 5 organs with which we receive the entire ecological information. And all of them do not give us really what is out there. Even the mind, in fact, deceives us. How this happens will be our examination now for some time during this talk, and then we will move on to the other aspects. For example, when you open the eyes, you see shapes. How far are the shapes that you see are really there? For example, you see some curves on the right panel and some meaningless shapes on the right panel, curves on the left panel, and some meaningless shapes on the right panel. You immediately think what they are. You name the left panel as a vase or 2 faces facing each other, and the other one you will say is meaningless. But in fact, the picture you have on the left, they are meaningless lines, and the picture on the right shows a fruit picker or a lady mopping the floor. So what is important here is how your thought is based in the background. That decides what you see. So it's the material, what exactly is out there, but what you think you see, what you anticipate, that determines ultimately what you see. Here, for example, is a few blotches there. I asked a 3-year-old boy, what does he see there in the picture? He said, dirt. Then I showed it to a 10-year-old girl and asked her, what do you see there? She said, she sees a dog. How could she say so? Because she has a pet dog in their family, and she could see the contours of a dog there, as you can see on the right panel now, as I highlight the picture of the dog. When once you see this picture of the dog and go back to the left panel, you can never unsee the dog. Now the program has been made in your brain to see only a dog, and that will never get erased in the brain. Or you can see even things that are not there. You can right away experiment it with yourself. You put the right and left hand finger, index fingers, touching each other, and slightly separate them, Instead of being focused on the fingers, if you pass through the fingers, you cross over, you see a small flesh, a blab of flesh, and you cannot stop seeing it. If you are still not convinced, here is another picture, a Kanishka's triangle. This triangle looks brighter than the surrounding paper, but in fact, it's not bright at all. They're all of the same illumination. If you try to pick the triangle, you can never pick it. But you can't also avoid seeing the triangle. Try what you may. The triangle will always be standing out. So also another shape, circles. The Ehrenstein looks brighter than the area surrounding, but you cannot even remove it from there or stop seeing it. Even the concept of you, yourself, that concept of a me, that is also equally dubiously produced. Now, the present-day psychologists and neuroscientists are realizing it, whereas Advaita has been saying that the world is all illusory and what you think yourself doesn't really exist at all there. But we'll go into that self in a little bit more detail a little later on. Now you see here movement. There's no movement at all there. If you slightly shake your head from left to right, you see the circles moving, even though there is no movement at all. Or you see colors. Poets go very ecstatic and musicians sing songs about various colors and the beauty out there in the nature. In fact, there is no color at all. Color is something you give to a signal that comes into your eye. If you see the yellow patches on the left panel there, and the blue ones, or rather I said the opposite, the blue tiles on the left side cube, and the yellow panel, yellow cubes on the, yellow color tiles on the right side, you see different colors. But what is their true color? See, the true color is all just the same. Only the impinging wavelength of the light determines what color you see. You are able to detect red, blues, and greens, whereas some other creature in the world cannot see those colors at all. See, for example, here is a saffron flower. We see the saffron color in those, saffron flower in the colors indicated in the top. But a bee looks at them in a different way. They see, the bees see concentric circles so that it can get guided towards the pollen grains or the andrecium there. For your dog, you may show colorful, juicy tomatoes, for example. It cannot see anything like red, juicy tomato. It sees only blues and yellows and a little combination of those colors. Whereas as humans, we see green colors, red colors, and a little mixing of these colors. Because we are sensitive, our eyes have the photosensitive ability to see the blues, reds, and greens, whereas dogs can see only the yellows and blues. So inherently there is no color in the nature, but that's what you give as an attribute. Even sounds, we make a meaning out of the sound depending upon how our brain is programmed for it. For example, here is a short clip from Professor Anil Seth from University of Sussex. You please listen to it carefully. And this is cognitive illusion, how our mind also gets deceived. Magicians use this quality or the deficiency of ours in all their tricks. Here is a short example just for your amusement. There are 6 cards on the right, and there are 3 pairs of eyes of 3 ladies there. Watch the 6 cards and pick up or think of one of the cards as your choice. Okay, don't tell anyone what choice you chose. If you want, you write it there on your note sheet or somewhere if you have. Now I am moving on to the next slide. You see the 3 pairs of eyes. Doesn't matter which pair, which lady it is. Just choose one of the eyes, the left eye or the right eye, whichever lady you would feel like. Now that lady, as soon as you have selected her eye, she knew what card you have selected. She removes it. The card you have selected is not there anymore. So this is called as attention blindness. Now, here again, I want to stress back on the pre-programmed nature of the brain and your mind in determining what you see or perceive. Let me play this clip. Dr. Kiroga from the University of Leicester, in fact, he goes one step further and he says, we are so much brainwashed in our understanding of the nature, in our perception, that the moment we talk of a checkerboard, we think the color in the various squares have to change. So even if though the impinging sound as the signal from the squares comes something to be different into your brain, your mind or brain overrides it and says, no, they're all of different colors. So you cannot see a checkerboard or a chessboard with different, with the same colors in the adjoining squares. So this is something how our brain gets preconceived in its notions and what it anticipates to see, only that it sees. This is again a tremendous little experiment. I think I'm already running short on my time, but anyway, we'll spend a little bit of time on this because we refer to this sense of self within us. This shows how even that sense of self is so labile, varying, and is not there at all. If we cut open our brain and look for a sense or a spot of self, it's not there, not a rope for self. So we think we have a body and we have that fundamental concept of self-awareness. But how strong is your own image of yourself? There's a small experiment Dr. Rosenbaum from University of California shows us.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Larry.
Hi, Edie.
Very nice to meet you, Edie. We're going to do a little demonstration here called the rubber hand illusion. It's going to be a little scary.
This illusion may look like fairground fun, but it reveals one of the most important new ideas in brain science.
Thank you. Right there. Good. And can you put this hand down right over here and just curl it up like the rubber hand's curled up a little bit. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is try to position the rubber hand so it looks like it's your own.
Okay.
Okay, could you imagine that being your own hand, kinda?
Yeah.
What we're going to do is we're going to just stroke your fingers simultaneously, the rubber finger and your real finger, and hopefully this will convince you that the rubber hand is your own, that your brain will actually adopt this hand.
In the illusion, simply watching the rubber hand being stroked at the same time as the real hand is enough to trick the brain into adopting it as its own.
We like weird. And slowly but surely, you should feel that the hand you're looking at is actually part of your body.
Feels like you're touching my hand with that one.
Right, so it feels like this is your hand that I'm touching, right?
Yes.
You okay?
Yeah.
Good. Try that at home with your kids. Yeah. The rubber hand illusion is a wonderful example of how multisensory perception can influence how we perceive our own body. I mean, that's how deep multisensory perception runs. When you hold your hand out, it's generally thought that you know it's there because of the information you're getting from your muscles and your tendons and that sort of thing. But what the rubber hand illusion does is show how that can be overridden by visual information. Okay.
So the rubber hand illusion just proves that what you consider as your body is totally dependent on your own inputs from the perceptory organs. In about as little time as 10 to 12 seconds, you disown your own real right hand and you begin to feel the artificially placed rubber hand is yours. Even the temperature in the real hand goes down as if it doesn't belong to you. So seeing is believing is what normally we think, but it is not so at all. And this has been confirmed by the science of, by neuroscience. And what it says is, we never receive any information on what exactly is out there. We get some information that is relevant at that moment only for the safety and opportunity of exploiting a situation for the body organism. So we do not really see what exactly is there outside and externally. Everything depends upon the figment of our prior imagination. So the priors in our brain, they determine what we see. So what is really then reality? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 20th verse, what is never born, what never dies, that is the true reality. It doesn't change, it is eternally there, and it is the most primary thing. Even if the body gets slain, that inner truth, the reality never goes away. It doesn't get affected at all. So what we truly are is that huge, huge detector, that sensor, which knows the things, which has the ability to detect all things that we think we see. So it is a sort of antenna, we can think. By itself, it doesn't have any preferences, it doesn't have any priorities, it is never changing, it just keeps sensing whatever is out there. But unfortunately, we identify ourselves with a limited body, and we think we are locked inside that body, and by identifying ourselves with that body, we feel all the miseries and shortcomings, deficiencies, inadequacies of the body as our own. Shankara observed, way back in the Upanishads in Chandogya, it is said that it is very well-known fact of life. What is it? That this embodied being can never be out of the troubles of the world, the various miserable existential experiences cannot be avoided as long as we keep identifying ourselves with a body which is not you really. What you really are is that inexpressible, antenna-like, attributeless sensor quality within you. So now, with this little idea, I would like to give you a feel of that sense or quality within you. So primary thing you should remember is anything you think or conceptualize or see or even experience, that's not you at all. So if you don't mind, please pay real good attention. Relax all your body muscles, right from the toe to the tip of the top of your head. Feel every muscle. Remove if any tensions are there by shaking or slightly altering your position. Calf muscles, thighs, hips, abdomen, thorax. Usually unknown tensions will be there in your shoulders, forearms, biceps, neck. Move your neck a bit around. Relax in your body, fall down. Let your head be down. Close your eyes if it helps. And I want you to touch with the palm of your right or left hand, doesn't matter, where you are sitting, either the floor or the sofa or the arm of the chair. Just slightly feel it. Don't immediately see or conclude or judge what you are touching. The moment you say touching a chair or a sofa or whatever it is, it's a very higher order interpretation by your mind. So please be focused. Focus on the touch sensation. Forget the entire world. So don't even call it touch. You keep on repeatedly touching it if you like. Don't even call it touch. Just feel what is happening. Don't try to see it. Close your eyes if you like. Just feel that touch. And you are hearing my words also. When you are touching it, don't say it is rough or smooth, soft or hard. Don't even come to those conclusions. Isolate the touching, a sensation of it. So drop down, go backwards, just feel that sense of something coming in between your hand and some other interface. Look for that interface. That interface has no qualities at all. And when you are feeling that interface, that sensitivity, you are not there. You don't feel. There is a you and touching something. There is only one thing, that touch. Similarly, my voice, these sounds, you are just hearing. Don't care for the words. Some sound, sensation is there. The sensation of my talk, sounds, the sensation of the touching, they are just same sensations. When you are feeling them, a you or I is not there. Just that sensation is there. Just zoom on to that sensation. That's the only thing there at that fraction of a moment. There's nothing else in the world. Your chair, your body, your thought, your interpretation, they will all disappear when you zoom on to that sensation. That sensation is a reflection of your sentience. That sentient element or basic knowing principle. And that basic knowing principle is there, even the I, you, nothing else exists. That is alone there. Advaita. There is no second thing. A means no, Dvaita, second thing, no two-ness. in that no two-ness, what is there is something infinite, indescribable. And that's what you are. That sensing capacity, that sensing principle is not governed by what it is encased in, like a thermometer. The thermometer can sense the temperature, whether it's a glass case or some other fancy case, digital chip, doesn't matter. It just senses the temperature. Instead of just temperature, it has an infinite capacity to sense everything and anything. That's what you are. That's what consciousness is. And it alone is, and that is Advaita. Now, if you can slowly open your eyes, come back to the screen, we'll continue on our talk. So what is this world then? The world is nothing but what your own mind and brain project outside, and you yourself see it back. Shankara says this in his special treatise known as Upanishads Sahasri, and it is further expanded in another beautiful short text called Atma Jnanopadesha Vidhi. And Anandagiri of 13th century, about 1,000 years ago, explained it much further, how the intellect itself projects what you see outside. So a thought generates in our mind, that thought gets projected out as an object. So nama in the head, rupa, the object outside. So a thought and a thing, and then the interaction between the thing and the thought, that is known as the action, work. So the thought, thing, and action, the trinity, is what we see back again through our perceptory system. So the normal man in the world, including the scientific investigation, goes on the basis of that there is a universe all around, and there is a Milky Way somewhere. At the edge of the Milky Way, there is a tiny solar system. In the solar system, Earth is one small dot-like planet. On that Earth, there is a human body. The human body has a brain, which develops a mind. That means the brain's activity is called as mind by the neuroscience, and they hardly distinguish between mind and consciousness until recently. So the consciousness is something reflected in the mind within as an activity of the brain. This is the way the normal man and the science proceeds. But what Advaita says is, what is around primary is consciousness. That is the most primitive, unmodified material. A little disturbance happens somewhere within the consciousness, and then a thought wave generates. The thought waves then further generates a mind, which is basically without a body. That is called as Hiranyagarbha. From there, the 5 fundamental elements come up. From the 5 fundamental elements, by a process of their mergers called quintuplication, panchikarana, we see all other gross objects, and from these gross objects, we carve out a shape in the form of a human being, and the human being with his appurtenances, hands, limbs, inner organs, outer organs, they all are utilized to gain experience and interaction with other fellow human beings. So it is just the reverse of what the common man's understanding or the scientific view of the world is. So basically, you are that consciousness, that sentient power. It acts as an illuminating agency, an arc lamp in a projector, And the mind is a film strip. Depending upon what mind you have, it projects a world for you. The impressions on the mind are like the pictures we have taken on the film strip. You change the mind on the film strip, you begin to see a different world. In the daytime, we have one type of mind, so we see an awake world. In the night, we change the mind, we see a different mind coming in, you see a dream. The mind and machinery gets tired, the outline never gets tired. The mind and machinery gets tired, the film strip moves. The film strip gets exhausted. In its movement, it likes to go off for a little while, and that is your deep sleep. So what here you can imagine is this. If I can clean up all images and impressions on that film strip, what will happen? The arc lamp light will get projected as if through a transparent windshield, that when nothing obstructs this consciousness. So if we clean up the mind with all the impressions, we get the same pure, pristine consciousness flowing through it. And that process of purifying the film strip is called Chitta Suddhi. Once this Chitta Suddhi cleans up all the remnant impressions on the film strip, that is the state of liberation. J. Krishnamurti used to call it as emptying the mind. I don't know how many people really understood that phrase, emptying the mind. If we are able to totally empty the mind from all its prayers, prejudices, opinions, anticipations, judgments, the what famously Vedanta calls as either our hatred or love, wanted, something want we want, or something want we want to reject. If all these are cleaned out, then consciousness itself is everywhere, and that is the absolute fulfillment of life. There is nothing else required there, no desire will be existing, and what we remain with us will be the unblemished, unbiased, unchanging without birth or death, unperturbed, desireless, tranquil, eternal, ever happy state. So the real happiness is that itself, the sentience which you truly are, and that is liberation. Now, for more than 99% of the people in the world cannot think that the world externally they see is unreal or is a projection like our dream. So for their sake, the tradition comes down a few steps with compassion and some concessions. They developed a method called as superposition and sublation. So the teachers agree, okay, let us take that there is a world, and step by step, whatever you believe to be your world and the system, ecosystem that you live in, they deliberately remove or rescind every one of those layers you put on yourself, that then they will get dissolved in the final moment when you realize that and live as that pure consciousness or the sentience. As a part of this imagination of a superimposed world, the concept of managers who will look after that world, which is a superimposition, which we call as creation, to manage it. So these officials who are vested with the responsibility of running that creation as an enterprise, They are called as adhikarika purushas. They are the jivan muktas, another name for them, or krutakrtyas, or gunapishas. There are so many words that describe them. So they are essentially desireless people who have nothing, no axe to grind, and they are the true leaders. We'll look into that. Our Sai Sambhaji is an expert on leadership, so I will pass on that burden to him to explain more on that. So I quickly show how our own scriptures define the qualities of the leaders to be. Why should we know about the qualities? Because whoever is such a great man, people love them and people would love to follow them, emulate their example, walk in their footsteps. In a couple of verses after this 21st here I have shown, Krishna himself says, Mama Vartmanu Vartante. Everybody would like to walk in my footsteps. So Krishna is such an ideal leader. So nature and characteristics of such a leader, if we will like to jot down, what stands out primarily is desirelessness and no attachment to anything at all. They are like open space. Bhagavad Gita in its second chapter gives a big list of their characteristics. There is also a list some characteristics in the 12th, 14th chapter, and some of the Upanishads also as Uttama Purushas. They describe such qualities. So they all work for the totality of the benefit. So a present-day leader has to work for the totality of the improvement of the organization, not a particular branch, a particular sect, or particular aspect of the organization. So I compared these qualities with what some of our leading management experts say. This is Linda Hill from Harvard Business School, her assistant, a research scholar, Emily Tedros. Jason Wild is the vice president of the Microsoft. Carl Weber is an expert in writing journalism. So what they said recently, hardly 5-6 months ago, instead of being at the forefront, they don't like to be important at the center of the stage. They will always be at the background. Let the other people take the center stage and be free to innovate and free to come up with their own thought process. They don't, it's not like a top-down mechanism of instructions. They will let the whole organization to bloom. And recently in January, the Center for Creative Leadership, they also listed a few of these qualities, and they are so much alike what our scriptures talk about, the sthita prajnas, or the self-realized or self-actualized people. So they have the courage, they respect, they have empathy, and also gratitude. They should be always ready to learn instead of be fixed in their own pet ideas. And they should have that freedom and liberty to allow others to speak. Now, this Business News Daily, I think in February, listed about 10 characters of a good leader. One thing they stress is your own self-examination every moment, your own motivations, what drives you. One characteristic we can observe is as a difference between an ordinary man and the man who has realized himself, has achieved that state of fulfillment, no lacks. he has a vision to be able to see, not using these 5 perceptory organs that we have. That is that consciousness, that is that sentience. So their actions, their planning, their desire for all the entire organization emanates from that universal consciousness rather than that individual 5 perceptory systems. If you add mind also to it, 6 systems of perception. Even Brihadaranyaka Upanishad talks in great detail about the universal vision of the sthita prajnas, of the self-realized, self-actualized individuals. Shankara explains that in much more detail in several of the mantras in his commentary at Brihadaranyaka. Aparakshanbhuti also says, you have to see the world from that jnana-chakshu. Even in Bhagavad Gita, for example, that divya chakshu that Krishna blesses with to Arjuna, he can see only a form, whereas this consciousness doesn't have a form. As I said, it's more like an antenna, not the rod or the net of the antenna, but that quality. Quality cannot be perceived at all. It is ineffable. That he calls in Gita as the jnana chakshu. So what one has to adopt is to shift ourselves from the normal perceptory sensation to this jnana chakshu. That is the fulfillment. That is the objective of every human being as per our Upanishads. So the take-home message, now to conclude quickly, if you take all the objects in the world and as little icons on a desktop, I'm adopting here Dr. Hoffman's comparison, and the world itself has a 4-dimensional desktop, the objects will be nothing like icons. So you don't take the icon itself, that human being or the animal or the tree or the river, doesn't matter what the icon is. They are not the reality. The reality is behind the icon. But you take these objects as serious things because they provide the interface. So in the 4D realm of the world, the active governing principle is the cause and effect relationships. Whereas if you go and use the cosmic or universal vision, cause and effect also will be ineffective there. They are not applicable there at all. So Advaita points us to the real reality that is behind these objectives, beyond these objectives, or prior to the objects of the world. So true leaders are the completely, fully realized beings who help run the creation, guiding the objects to the truth. The final guidance is to make us all self-actualize ourselves. So we have to first cleanse our system to be able to perceive and be that absolutely pure, unblemished consciousness or sentience. That is moksha. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I think I'll stop here for any further questions and discussions.
Thank you very much, Ramesam ji. I would invite Vijay ji to just join us, and he would like to add something right away, and then we will get into it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. You can hear me, right? You can hear me all?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. So this is, as you can see, this is a long journey. towards nirvana or towards mukti, liberation, and but on this journey, personally, I'm telling you, personally, there are a lot of gems to be picked up to become a true leadership. I mean, I've gone through my corporate life in personally, gone through many leadership seminars and stuff like that of the Western ways, so to say, quote unquote. Western ways is they're very linear. They make you very organized, and like a lot of Chitta Shuddhi is talking about, Ramesam is talking about that we've gone through. But what Ramesam offers here, it gives you some very, very special out of the box skill sets. I just want to mention 3 of them. One of them is clarity. As you could see, what you see is what is not what it is. So if you know this kind of approach develops tremendous clarity. And one good example is, and once you have the clarity, it doesn't matter what your qualifications were or what are going to be or what your upbringing is. If you have a clarity of that specific goal, you are bound to be successful. Absolutely. I mean, a good example is our Microsoft chief, who happens to studied at my hometown here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He studied here. He didn't go to the IITs, he didn't go to IIMs of India, he didn't go to MIT, Stanford, or nothing. Milwaukee is a parochial, a good college, a good engineering school. But I could see there when he joined here that he had a very, very clear vision. So that clarity of vision, and that's where this approach teaches you the clarity. Once the clarity is there, I think as a true leader, you can see something, because there are many superimpositions on your mind, as you could see, that this is my biases, your previous biases, something that fears, all those superimpositions are clear, you get clarity. Number 2 is you have this nonlinear approach to a solution. The traditional way is linear solution. If the problem is nonlinear, you make it piecewise linear and try to solve it step by step. Whereas this gives you a totally different view. I'll give you an example. In your sleep, a tiger is chasing you. And then what do? You'll run faster, you'll take a car, you do all kinds of things and the tiger keeps on approaching. The easier solution is a nonlinear solution. That's a good wake up, and these are the types of solutions you'll come up with through this. And the third one, which I thought is very, very interesting, which today it's used by many successful business people, sports people, artists, and that's the zone performance. They call it zone performance, in the sense the whole problem is me, I, and that's what Ramesam was telling about, me, the concept of me as a separate being. If you drop that, all of a sudden you're in a zone. You're in a zone, and like Michael Jordan in that championship, he said that when he was in a zone, he didn't know who was playing. And he was throwing the basket, and it was ending up as if it's going in the Pacific Ocean. Anywhere he threw, it would just land in that hoop. And that is that's the performance, that's the zone performance. And there are many histories in the Indian history also. These 2 generals, Hariharan Bukka, were defeated, they were dejected, and this one guy, Vidyaranya Swami, he told them, come on, and he kind of inspired them, and all of a sudden these 2 defeated generals, reconstructed the entire Vijayanagar empire, which ruled for 150 years. And this Vidyaranya is the guy, one of the very leading proponents of critique, Bhashakara or Vartikara of Advaitas. So these are the gems you can pick up on your way. Now the nirvana and mukti will be there waiting for you, but on the way, this certainly will make you very successful. I thought and this is my personal experience with Ramesam. I saw this presentation some 12 years ago, 13 years ago, and it definitely works. That's my little 2 cents worth.
There is one question from Ravindra Murthy. Yeah, he has now added another question. The first question was, let me read it out. With all due respects, when Advaita Vedanta shows as a fact that the entityhood is purely fictional, there are no others, etc., who is to be groomed as a leader? Whom does he lead? So a very pertinent doubt, particularly people listening to the Neo Vedanta lectures get. See, the traditional Advaita has a gradational system. It doesn't want, or it doesn't say, every human being, as soon as he is born, should be put into this Advaita tract. What it says essentially is that the person should grow through a series of steps. First, during the childhood, he'll have to learn things. So there is a period of 20-25 years of learning things, not only in terms of observation around, but also language skills for communication, logic, and so on and so forth, including grammar and metrology, so many things, prosody. Then he moves on to a stage called the householder stage. So most of the leadership activities that generally people understand and refer to belong to this next phase of the householding, where building the progeny and also building up wealth, creating the wealth. These economic aspects and demographic aspects are built into. After a person or man fulfills those responsibilities, he moves on to solitary thinking. That phase is called as forest dweller. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So he goes away the household responsibilities to be a forest dweller, to think all his life, what was it about, and review it, then try to understand and question it. From there, he proceeds to the fourth and final stage, the aspect of liberation. So here I have telescoped all those things, touching more on the liberation aspect, but a normal human being has also these responsibilities. That's why we have been given 4 pursuits. One is brahmacharya, where it is essentially knowing, learning, and service. The next is householder, progeny, and also wealth building activities, kama. So dharma, artha, kama, then moksha. The fourth is moksha. So in marriages also, if you observe carefully, when the husband and wife are married together and they take the promises together only for the first 3 aspects, but not for the fourth. So the fourth aspect is where we have stressed here. So before that phase, you have the necessities of the leadership, necessities of people looking for a leader whom they have to emulate. And his second question was about JK, emptying the mind, but he also poses a challenge. Who is the purifier of the mind? Yeah, that's a deeper question. The mind purifies by itself. That's a simple answer I can give you for the moment. But then to expand in it, it takes time. But roughly speaking, you see, there are 2 forces at every moment in our life. One is the pull factor, and another is the push factor. The pull factor is the consciousness which is all-pervading, inside you, outside you. There is no place where it is not there. And it has that centripetal force. It pulls things towards itself. Even the word Krishna means that. Who pulls everything towards his own self. So consciousness acts as a pull factor. And as a push factor, that individual, when he thinks as a separate self, that begins to operate towards separation. Instead of separation, if that self acts as a push factor, then the merger to the oneness will be much faster. I hope I am able to tell you who is the what you posed the challenge, who is the purifier of the mind. So the purifier is a combination of these two, the pull factor of the consciousness and the push factor. In fact, in Upanishads, we have a mantra which says, at every moment you have a choice, either to go on the path of shreyas, which is the good first thing, or prayers, which is pleasant. So the moment you separate yourself as an individual, you have the choice. Either you choose to be pulled by the consciousness factor, or you involve yourself towards self-enjoyment and pleasures and luxuries. Then we will be going to an ever-expanding world of activities. Whereas if you take this straight path, it's an implosion. The diversity, multiplicity will all get fused into or dissolved into that primary primeval consciousness. Then Ajanandan Nandi, he doesn't have any question. I think this is all what I see here. Please explain how oneness promote leadership when there is complexity in the world. See, essentially I have touched on that part. See, the self-realized individual has no axe to grind of his own. So his tendency will not be towards division of people, the divide and rule policy. It will not be there at all. It's always towards a unifying, integrating aspect that he works on. Then Dheeraj Puri Goswami, how to stop egoism? Yeah, that's a funny question, because the moment you stop, ego tries to stop the ego. Ego is actually taking a butt there. Ego cannot, or mind cannot kill itself. So what sage Vasishtha advises in this is, whenever that egoism arises, there's a thought, which ultimately ego is a thought, nothing but a little vibration. You consciously remember to produce an anti-ego thought. So put all around your room or everywhere a little post-it stickers to remind yourself. The moment the ego props up, you immediately try to push egolessness as a thought. Over time, this takes time. Over time, the distance between the emergence of the ego and your conscious neutralization of it takes time, but the time gets reduced more and more. The moment the ego starts popping up, you will be able to identify it and nip it in the bud. So it's a, as Krishna himself says, this is something abhyasena. We have to do it repeatedly by practice. In fact, if we have time, can I do that? I have a couple of slides on this aspect to show.
One thing I would like to add, Ramesam, to this, if you allow me, is if you are intense in what you're doing, really, you are one with the goal. Like if you're singing a song, if you're trying to hit a note, if you're so intense, all of a sudden the singer and the song disappears, ego automatically drops off. That is one way of also losing it. Once you're so involved in something where the ego itself goes, if there is no you and me, like when a singer sings and he's so involved in it, he doesn't know who's singing, and it's absolutely all in one, and that's how the ego disappears. And I think that's another way of looking at is how to get there is something I think Ramesam can tell you more. But that is also the idea where the Trinity disappears, where the seer, the seen, and the act of seeing, all of them become one.
So if I can share this screen once again with Sai Sambhaji's permission, let me go here. See, in Katha Upanishad, and this gets repeated in Gita also, the comparison given is that the body is like the insentient chariot. The five senses, one horse is missing here. The five senses are like the horses. The path that the horses take are the attractions in the world. The reins are the mind, and the center of the mind is ego. So ego is practically a thought, and mind is also a thought. You can equate ego here. You can place here the ego. Intellect is the driver, and you are the rider. This is the comparison that Krishna or the Bhagavad Gita as well as Katha Upanishad gives. Now, the intellect understands logic and it immediately agrees, yes, this looks very logical, I should do it. But the mind and the horses will say, no, they're not convinced. We are accustomed to do things in our way, we'll do it. So how do you solve this problem? If you recall the first picture I have put in there, the organization, the body, the senses, they're like the huge elephant. This is a behemoth organization that the top man decides and sits right on. The top man is convinced, the Mahout is convinced, he wants the elephant to take a particular direction, right or left. But the elephant organization says, no, I am like this, I'm happy, I want to go on bananas here. So how does he control it? How does that egoism be stopped? In the shape of things as they are, this intellect is nothing really. Whereas the intelligence has an intention to do the betterment, the behemoth organization doesn't permit that. So how do you go about it? Krishna says in Gita that the organization which consists of mostly the body and all that, which is unconvinced, it has to be trained. So the secret for that is repeated practice, as he says in the 6th chapter, 35th verse, control through practice. So the ego is part of the mind and the senses, which are practically is another sense only. So practice is the solution for it. So you can't arrive at it in one day, that's right, but you have to achieve it through practice. Any other questions pending? Oh, I see one more.
Yes, Ramesam ji, if I can just step in and read them out. Yeah. We have an anonymous attendee who's mentioning, won't there be a lack of desire for leadership once this realization is attained?
Yes. If you go by that analogy of the Adhikarika Purushas, as I have mentioned, Shankara discusses in Vedanta Sutras, aphorism, 3rd chapter, 3rd pada, 32nd aphorism. Certain managers or certain Adhikarika Purushas are assigned some jobs. So they consciously then take up this responsibility. This, some people will go away into secluded places, like in Himalayan caves or somewhere where there is no other disturbance, or some people like Raghavendra Swami, they choose to bury themselves, particularly those who have yogic abilities, that Bharabhaman Yogi was another who, I think he belonged to Karnool, but then he went to the Kaveri side. He also buried himself consciously. So some people would like to be totally isolated, whereas some people, they will work for the betterment of the world. So it also depends partly on the creator who assigns, and also inherent unfulfilled desires or whatever it is. We can call it as prarabdha, even though no prarabdha is supposed to be there. But Shankara baskets it all such tendency to work for the betterment as part of prarabdha only. So I don't know whether I have explained it fully or not to the anonymous attendee. So essentially, you can say there is a diversity in the realized people who opt for lokasangraha, for the goodness of the totality of the universe or organization, whereas some people, they want to be in the staff line only, not the administrative management line. Then we have, do you want to take it over, Namrata, to read the next one?
Yes. So there is one more question regarding Loka Sangraha, as you just mentioned. This lack of desire for leadership, is that the real leadership or Loka Sangraha? Rajat Mishra ji is asking.
Lack of desire. You mean somebody just sits there doing nothing? Is that itself welfare of the universe? I think Ramana Maharshi said yes, but that's not really Lok Sangraha. Lok Sangraha is taken over by the Tibetan monks to the other extreme, or even Vivekananda. He is supposed to have said, for the benefit of the people, I will take so many rebirths. But rebirth will not happen once one is totally freed from this worldly cycle of births and deaths. So that's why Vivekananda's philosophy is called Neo-Vedanta. Real Vedanta doesn't talk about rebirth at all. In fact, ending, but forever, for good, is liberation for us, as per Shankara Advaita. Anyway, so leadership is not equivalent to Lokasangraha, I think. There are two different things altogether. Leadership is valid within the time-space phenomenal or causational world. So liberation is a bit different there. Then there's one more in between Namrata, one Ravindra Murthy.
Yeah, I think he has just responded to how he understood some of your earlier responses.
That's not a question per se. He's talking about that avastatraya viveka. So we just added that.
So we don't have to discuss this.
Yeah, he just said, he was just saying that our seers have given us a marvelous prakriya of avastatraya viveka. If you have anything to explicate on avastatraya viveka, then it will add to his comment there.
Yeah, again, when we talk about avastatraya viveka, see, two major schools of thought are there. The Vivarana school, led by Panchapadika and all these people, follow verbatim the Mandukya Upanishad and say these three avasthas, the awake, dream, and deep sleep, are three phases that keep changing over the background of turiya, the fourth. So that means consciousness is ever there, and these three states keep moving in that. Whereas the school by Satchidananda Saraswati of Purnasapur, as well as the direct path people, Atmananda Krishna Menon and those people say, the deep sleep itself is equivalent to turiya. So there is slight difference there in how you look at it, but that process itself of analyzing the avastatriya tries to help us to arrive at that ultimate pure sentience or consciousness or that knowing principle which we have discussed during this morning. So essentially when the mind is active, it is either the awake state or the dream state. When the mind is totally dissolved, takes rest, it is deep sleep. Now, where does the mind take rest? Where does it completely dissolve into? That is consciousness, turiya. This is the model which Mandukya says.
Rameshamji, I would like to come in here, and we have now around 7 minutes to sort of integrate and then wrap up. If I may come in, then I would like to do that.
Beautiful. Yes.
Yeah. See, it has been a very, very enlightening thing where you use the modern neuroscience in terms of looking at how neuroscience is bringing about some of the brain-based say examples of what the acharyas have been telling all the while about perception in terms of cognitive illusion and all those kind of things, and the whole issue of how perception is distorting the reality or coloring the reality, as it were. So a couple of things which stood out for me as I was listening to you is one can only intuit the reality. This is one very, very significant statement you have made in terms of, so how do you intuit the reality? You showed some of the ways in which it could be achieved also. For example, that arc lamp and the projector of the arc lamp and the film, which is the intermediary and what gets projected. I think that came out that was a very picturesque way of trying to look at what is consciousness and how it gets filtered through the mind, which is the film with impressions of vasanas and samskaras, what gets actually projected instead of the lucid, the luminance there it is. And we also talked about how do we make that film strip hopefully first translucent, then transparent. I mean, rather than being colored, how do you make it the chitta shuddhi or emptying of the mind, as Jiddu ji talked about. And I think that's one thing in terms of, that's where we are working on, Rameshamji, that the whole inner transformation part of our work is CCSIT is about how do you work on the film strip that you have, what on your vasanas and samskaras in terms of how do you make that film strip as transparent as, I mean, initially it is translucent, then transparent, hopefully, so that the true thing flows out. So that's one definite connect with the work we do. The second part, which I was linking to both what Vijayji said about clear vision and I will stay with clear vision first. And you talked about the Divya Chakshu and Jnana Chakshu, which Bhagavan Sri Krishna talks about, or he exposes Arjuna to. So I think that developing that Jnana Chakshu is a way in which, or probably I think it goes together. The whole process of Chitta Shuddhi is a way one is moving from an egoic vision and a body, say, conscious vision or a mind conscious vision into something more deeper, which is more closer to the conscious part. So I think the Jnana Chakshu, development of Jnana Chakshu by unraveling and then cleansing the current, say, patterns and conditions of the mind is one definite thing we can look at. Of course, you talked about some of the aspects in which it could be done from a Advaitic perspective. That also you gave some examples later on, explaining to. So, and also the pull and push. In fact, what we talk about tapas in our tapas is one of our practices in inner transformation. We talk about tapas as a heat which gets generated when there is a push and pull between the pull from the consciousness side to get in more and more into the higher consciousness vis-a-vis the body consciousness or current conditioning, which is pulling me to the current reality. We talk about that as a dynamic tension and a heat which generates it. That we call the tapas. It's the incubating heat which enables to cleanse the film strip, as it were, so that the light, pure light, can flow. So some of these have been the parallels vis-a-vis what we have been working on. In fact, when in our conversation we said we are not talking about just making leaders becoming more successful. We are saying we are talking about leaders becoming more conscious, so that they lead as an expression of consciousness, not necessarily an expression of ego or expression of something. So I think some of the things, and I am only able to touch upon 3-4 of things to this thing, but it has been a lot of say Advaitic wisdom in terms of how this whole process of getting the mind to be uncluttered and hopefully emptied over a period of time, whereby the consciousness can express to a person as an Adhikarika Purusha, and then the consciousness, say, work in the world, work in an organization, institution. I think that came out fairly vividly, Ramesam. So very grateful to you for that.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you.
Would you like to add anything as we close? You or Vijay Ji, please do. Then.
Vijay ji, you are on mute actually.
No, I think this was wonderful, the way you're integrating everything, and some of the questions are genuine. And like I say, this is a journey, and I look at it as on the way to that journey. These are the gems you can pick up towards the goals you were mentioning. These are very divine goals, and your approach is absolutely right on spot. Appreciate opportunity for me to participate in this, and of course, I thank Ramesam for his wisdom.
Yeah, thank you, Ramesam Ji, and thank you, Vijay Ji. And
our audience has been almost very patient. I think only the 4 casualties are there, I think.
So, Namrata, we can close with that invocation of Purna. Yeah. Okay.
Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Namaskar.
Namaste.
Namaste, everybody.
Thank you so much.